You notice it almost immediately. The bowl is still full. Your dog walks past it like it's not even there. No excitement, no curiosity, just a brief glance, and then they move away. Maybe they lie down somewhere quieter than usual. Maybe they follow you, but more slowly. Or maybe they don't come at all when you call. At first, it feels confusing, because this is the same dog who usually reacts to food before it even touches the bowl. So what changed? When your dog stops eating, it doesn't always mean something obvious, but it almost always means something is different. And that difference often starts on the inside. Now, before your mind jumps to the worst possibilities, it's important to understand something that many pet owners overlook. Changes in eating behavior are actually quite common. Dogs don't relate to food the same way we do. For them, eating is closely tied to how they feel in their body and how safe and stable their environment feels. So when something shifts internally or around them, appetite is often one of the first things to change. And this doesn't always mean something serious. Sometimes it's simply their way of adjusting, their way of responding to a moment that feels slightly off. If you think about when this usually happens, it often appears during very specific situations. Maybe your dog skips a meal after a long day, or after a change in routine, or when the house feels unusually quiet. They approach the bowl, hesitate for a moment, and then turn away. Not dramatically, not urgently, just a quiet decision not to engage. In those moments, your dog isn't rejecting the food itself. They're responding to how they feel. Because appetite for animals is closely connected to internal balance. When something feels even slightly uncomfortable, their instinct isn't to push through it. It's to pause, to conserve energy, to wait. You might notice them choosing to lie down instead of eating, choosing stillness over activity. And while this can feel concerning from the outside, from their perspective, it's a very natural response. A way of protecting themselves while something doesn't feel quite right. There's also a more subtle layer to this. Sometimes it's not just about physical sensation. It's about emotional state. Dogs are deeply responsive to their environment. They pick up on changes in energy, in routine, in presence. If something in their world feels different, even in a small way, it can influence their behavior, including how and when they eat. You might have experienced this without realizing it. A busier day, a quieter home, a shift in your own mood. Your dog notices these things. And sometimes, instead of expressing it outwardly, they simply withdraw a little. They become quieter, less engaged, less interested in things that usually excite them, including food. And in that moment, the behavior isn't about the meal. It's about regulation, a way of stabilizing themselves in an environment that feels slightly unfamiliar. But here's something most pet owners don't realize. When a dog doesn't eat, their focus often shifts away from external things and toward internal awareness. They become more observant, more still, more selective with their energy. And this is where the behavior becomes more meaningful. Because your dog isn't just not eating, they're adjusting. They're listening to their body in a way that's instinctive and automatic. In the wild, animals don't force activity when something feels off. They slow down, they retreat, they wait until balance returns. And even though your dog lives in a safe, comfortable home, those same instincts are still there, quietly guiding their behavior. You might notice them choosing different places to rest, somewhere more secluded, or somewhere closer to you. Sometimes even both, at different moments. That choice isn't random. It reflects what they need. If they move closer to you, it can be a sign of seeking reassurance, a familiar presence, something stable. If they move away, it can be about reducing stimulation, creating a space where they can rest without interruption. In both cases, the behavior is about regulation, about finding a state where they feel more balanced. And eating, in that moment, becomes less important. because their priority isn't energy intake. It's internal stability. There's also something else you might notice. Your dog may still show interest in you, even if they ignore the food. They watch you. They follow you slowly. They stay nearby, but without the usual energy. This is an important detail, because it shows that the bond is still active. The connection is still there. They're not disengaging from you. They're just adjusting how they interact with the world. Less intensity, less activity, more observation, more stillness. And in that state, appetite naturally decreases. Not because they don't need food, but because their system is focused elsewhere. Over time, you may start to see patterns. Moments when your dog eats normally, and moments when they don't. And often, these patterns align with changes in routine, environment, or internal state. This is how animals communicate subtle shifts, not through words, but through behavior. Small changes that signal something deeper. And when you begin to see it this way, the behavior starts to feel different, less random, less confusing, more like a quiet form of communication, a signal that something somewhere feels a little different. There's also a deeper layer in how this affects your relationship. When your dog isn't feeling completely like themselves, they often rely more on familiarity, on presence, on the parts of their environment that feel stable and predictable. And that often includes you. Even if they're not eating, they may choose to stay close, to rest near you, to exist in the same space without needing interaction. That closeness becomes a kind of anchor, a quiet reassurance that things are still safe, still known, still steady. And over time, these moments of vulnerability become part of the bond you share. Because connection isn't only built during play or excitement, it's also built in stillness, in quiet presence, in moments where nothing is happening, but everything is being felt. So when your dog walks away from their food, it's not just about the meal. It's about what's happening inside them, physically, emotionally, instinctively. It's a pause, a shift, a moment of recalibration. And while it may feel concerning from the outside, from their perspective, it's a very natural response, a way of staying in tune with themselves, a way of maintaining balance. Because at its core, this behavior isn't about rejection. It's not about stubbornness. And it's not about the food itself. It's about how your dog feels in that moment, and how their instincts guide them when something feels different. So the next time you notice the bowl untouched, and your dog quietly choosing something else instead, you're not just seeing a change in appetite. You're seeing a moment of communication, a subtle signal, a quiet expression of what's happening beneath the surface. And in that moment, your dog isn't just avoiding food. They're responding to their world in the only way they know how. Carefully, instinctively, and in their own quiet language. They're telling you something, not loudly, not urgently, but clearly enough, if you know how to see it. If you've noticed your dog doing this, I'd really like to hear about it. When does it usually happen, and how do they behave in those moments? Share your experience in the comments. Every story helps us understand them a little better. And I'll see you in the next video.